Hopefully you enjoyed lunch. That's just in case I wander around the room, so he's ready for me. I've got the ADHD jitters. You will notice up on the board it's neurodiverse driver training. We're currently going through a business change. Rather than autism, we're branching out so it better describes what we're doing. We're currently in negotiations with a UK publishing firm where we'll be doing a training textbook on neurodiverse students and driving, and that will have the workbook that will also go with it. So when you deal with publishers, as some of you may know, they want to change everything about your business. So they certainly did that for us. So neurodiverse driver training, what is neurodiversity? And for those that were here last year listening to me talk and ravel on about this, we'll go to the next one. Neurodiversity is a range of different diagnoses. The only two that I'm going to talk about today, happy to talk to you in breaks about any of them, but as you can see from the chart up on the board, it does cover a very wide range of diagnosis. And I'm not mentioning the word disorder because many of these people don't consider themselves as having a disorder, they just have a challenge. So we'll be talking about autism and ADHD because they are some of the more popular things that you'll come across as a driving instructor. And just talking to a few in the room this morning, that's where you want to don the Kevlar vest and the helmet. So we'll talk about those two. So very quickly, the difference between autism and ADHD. So without going too much into the diagnosis, this is all within the course that we teach for driving instructors. They are very different and they are working from different parts of the brain. They have different challenges. There is at the moment a rise in diagnosis of a combination of autism and ADHD. And you'll see that written as an AU-ADHD in their diagnosis. For those poor people, it's like working from polar opposites in one body. So they are really challenged in what they're doing. With autism, you're looking more at the social communication issues, those sorts of things, sensory issues, very literal thinkers, and visual thinkers. You are going to come across issues like shutdowns and meltdowns, where they just stop and you can't talk to them, nothing's happening in that car. I think I was talking to someone about one happening right on a roundabout, and that's unfortunately what we find for driving instructors is no one tells you until it's too late. Parents won't tell you that they're autistic until about the third lesson, and they'll say, by the way, did you know little Johnny's autistic? And you go, yep, found that out in the first 5 minutes. So obviously that's an OH&S issue for driving instructors. You will find that they will stim. Now, you all have some nice little fidget toys on your table. Anyone playing with that as I am, that is stimming. That is one method. It does not mean that every autistic student in your car will pick up a fidget toy. Some don't do it that way. I have an elastic, hat elastic on my steering wheel, and commonly they'll just pull that elastic and you'll just hear it flicking onto the steering wheel. That's their method of stimming. Everybody has a different method. These are just a little bit of a, something that's happening at the moment. Everyone's got fidget toys in their shops. Lack of eye contact, you'll find they don't look at you. Just because an autistic person isn't looking at you does not mean they're not listening. Your ADHD is a totally different kettle of fish. We have three different types. We have hyperactive, inattentive, and we have a combination. They are very dysregulated, and a lot of people will associate ADHD with bad behaviour. They are the kids that didn't quite make it through school, might have gone to a behavioural school, and were always tagged as the bad kid. ADHD is not a behavioural issue. It is a dysregulation of how their brain functions and how they regulate their emotions. They're very time blind. They don't know how much time has gone past, hence they love to be on things like video games and can sit there for 6 hours straight. There's no time knowledge. Very impulsive, they often interrupt you. So you'll be talking and they'll interrupt you about a totally different topic. And they often miss detail, and that's where driving becomes a huge issue for ADHD. So just quickly looking at autism, a lot of people will think the spectrum, when we talk about a spectrum, is linear, and it's not. It's far from linear. So there is not less autistic or more autistic. So if you get a parent saying, little Johnny's just a little bit autistic, there is no such thing. They either are or they are not. Where they sit on that spectrum looks very different. So, yep, one more. So on the spectrum, we now talk about an autistic wheel. We also have an ADHD wheel that you can put anything around this wheel. The first one is just a base knowledge one that you could use. The other one is coming direct from an online test you can do from the IDR labs, and you can put that person, well, not that you put the person through, you can suggest that they go through it, and it will develop that wheel for you. And you can see this person, the more colour, the more challenges within that, has a huge aggression issue. So that's where they will get angry if they get frustrated and so forth. So just to show you that autism is not about intelligence. They are often highly intelligent people. They just have communication issues. The brain on the left is an autistic person. It happens to be Temple Grandin. Temple Grandin's one of the most famous autistic people that has been a great advocate for autism because she could communicate how she thought and what helped her. You can see it's 4 times the amount of connections in the visual part of the brain that she's seeing pictures, and she has actually written a book called Thinking in Pictures. She literally sees the picture. She doesn't see the word or the connection. Where the other side is a neurotypical person, very focused, going down that track of a little bit visual, a little bit what I hear and how I communicate. So how do we help autistic people? Autistic people have special interests. If we as driving instructors can hone in on a special interest, 1, you've connected with them. 2, you've got their trust. And I always warn driving instructors, if you're going to use something like Grand Theft Auto, know the game, because they do. They know it inside out, all the rule books, all the cheats, everything. So you don't want to be getting a character wrong in any of these. Currently, Chris, one of our instructors, is training a level 1 autistic using Zelda. I know. And he's teaching him how to do hazard perception using Zelda. I have an ADHD client at the moment, and the only thing she'll talk to me about is Grand Theft Auto. So that's where we're going. So these are just a few. It can be anything from horses, it can be anything to cats, it can be anything. But it's up to you as a trainer to find that special interest. So in terms of testing officers, how do we help these clients? And I know I've talked to a few around the room today and in different conferences, and the common thing that comes up is, but I can't tell the testing officer. I'm not allowed to go up and say, hey, this guy's autistic, can you treat him differently? That needs to change, because we're not asking for the testing officer to make the test easier. It's an educational accommodation. So one of the things your client can do is get a free card from Aspect. These are free, they're plastic cards. I have one. So if anyone wants to have a look at it. There's also a cardboard one that they can get, and that's probably more the one that they would give out. You can get multiple copies of these or photocopy them, and it tells the testing officer what I need. So things like, I behave differently, I feel anxious in new situations. So they, as the client, can hand that over with their paper. So that's absolutely free from Aspect, and I suggest if you've got clients, letting them know that they can get that. It comes in the mail within a week. It is their personal choice to disclose. So I need to make that quite clear. A lot of autistic people do not want people to know they're autistic, so totally up to them. The next one, I'm actually wearing one, and a lot of you may already know the sunflower for hidden disabilities. It's not just autism and ADHD, it's anything from diabetes, epilepsy, polycystic ovarian issues, anything that is hidden and cannot be seen. The sunflower worldwide is known, so it's not just Australia, it's worldwide. And Service New South Wales last year, all their staff got put through the sunflower training. So they are now trained up to identify if someone walks in with this, they are to be kind, to give them a bit more time to accommodate those needs. So you can get the lanyard, you can get a lapel badge, or you can get one of these wrist silicone things. So they're not free, but it does, if that's what the client wants, they can identify. So quickly going on to ADHD, because I'm aware of the time and how much information we need to get through. The three types of from ADHD is hyperactive. Very low percentage of ADHD are hyperactive on their own. So hyperactive are the ones the kids you see bouncing off the wall, literally. Could not sit still for 2 minutes, let alone 5. These are the kids that often get pulled up to the principal's office. So these ones really struggle to have a normal education. Inattentive, that's the dreamers, easily distracted, easily taken off. I had my first assessment lesson with an ADHD girl last week, and in 200 metres we had changed topics 4 times. None of them were related. And it was like my brain was hurting at that point. It was like, let's pull over, let's get some guardrails on and get some rules in, because she had me jumping from one topic to another. Then you have the combined, and a little bit like the autistic ADHD, very mixed. They're polar opposites, they're working against themselves, and it is a struggle. So if we want to put that into layman's terms, click. Let's go Ice Age. Scrat is hyperactive, very impulsive, gets himself into trouble, doesn't even know how he got there, but he got there. Inattentive is Sid, wandering off with the little flower while the ice melts. So that's to put it into layman's terms. So what are the issues with ADHD? A lot of it's neurotransmitters, and they're the chemicals in our brain that actually help us do things and make the brain respond and act. And without going into the neuroscience of all these things, you will have heard a lot of people say, I need a dopamine hit, or they're low in dopamine. And dopamine is one of these neurotransmitters that basically is that feel-good transmitter. It attaches, like, as you all walked out for lunch, you could smell lunch. You had an anticipation of good tasting food. So your brain was flooding with dopamine at that point. Then if the food was good, which it obviously was for a few that had to change their shirt, then the dopamine then said to the brain, that type of food is good. Next time that happens, I'll like that. Okay, so dopamine itself is not addictive. It's the pleasure sensation that it gives into that person. Now, for an ADHD person, their transmitters and the dopamine things that attach, and when the brain gets too much dopamine, it takes it away. So the brain's very well regulated to balance things out. When we get too much dopamine, it takes it out. In an ADHD person, it doesn't know that it hasn't got enough dopamine, and that chemical floods in and takes the dopamine that's already there. So these kids are on really low dopamine. So of course they're chasing a dopamine hit. They know what it means, they know the pleasure, and they know what it's going to give them. So this is where the impulsivity comes in. Norepinephrine and serotonin, very similar, but they're working from the emotional side of the brain. And that's unfortunately where we get the ADHD emotional dysregulation from. You will get a stimulant drug like Ritalin, Concerta, Vivance, and that's working on the dopamine. That's stopping the transmitter thing from taking the dopamine out. Then you've got your non-stimulants that are actually working a different way in the brain. Either way, as a driving instructor, I need to know what you're on. I need to know how it's going to affect you. And look, I could give you a list of all the medication in Australia. It's worth knowing the side effects because some of them are horrendous for these kids. So balance is what we're all about with the neurotransmitters. So what does the research tell us about ADHD? 2019, and there's been many published researchers. Western Australia University are doing a lot with this, but this one particularly was a good one. 4-year crash rate for drivers, 37% higher for ADHD. Then you had the drivers that had ADHD had 62% higher rate of injury crashes and 109% higher rate of alcohol related. That's the dopamine chase. Teens with ADHD had 36% higher traffic violations. Then we had 17% of teens. ADHD had their licence suspended compared to 10% of your average child. Teens with ADHD had a higher risk of speeding. All the stuff we tell them not to do, these kids did. And then the last one, they have a higher risk of all of this happening in the first month of solo driving. So that's obviously impacting what's happening on road. So OH&S for neurodiverse students, if you've got, and you will have neurodiverse students, don't take the lesson without training in the field. It is important you understand these kids. It's important that we give them the right information. Neurodiverse person will go through 3 to 4 trainers. It's upwards of 6 before they find the right connection to the right person. You must do a pre-drive interview with the client or the parent and caregiver. I can't stress that enough, that you sit down with the parents. It will often, and the bane of my life, is trying to convince the parent that they are actually neurodivergent. And yes, they're on NDIS, but they just want little Johnny to be normal and they don't want the stigma attached to it. So they're not going to tell you straight up that he's a level 2 autistic that needs extreme support. Unfortunately, that becomes a huge OH&S issue for us. You must get full diagnosis before entering a car. And look, some of the people that have done the course with me, one of the big questions was, but how do I ask that? Well, you're getting in a weapon of mass destruction. This is something you need to know. You need to know everything about that diagnosis. It's not about privacy because you are taking them out driving. You must get the medication, the type, the dose and the timing. This little ADHD one that I had the other day, she has a Ritalin in the morning, she has it at lunch, and by afternoon she's boom, out. So not responsive. So I am never going to do an afternoon lesson with that child. Her peak time of medication is 9 o'clock. That's when we do our drive.
Sorry, I'm not sure if questions are on.
At the end, but go for it. Yeah.
It's really on topic. I do find that it's the after-school pickup time.
Yes.
So I do find that these people will be getting their licence in. If they're pre-licensed under your training, should you be driving with them at those times?
No. The quick answer is no. You need to schedule it because you will end up having a near accident or worse. These kids are literally washed out.
Will they be on a restricted licence then?
No, because it's not reportable to the RMS. ADHD and autism is not reportable. Not unless the medication is at such a high, like they're on something like lithium for depression and other issues, wouldn't be reportable. So it is a huge loophole in our training system and our testing systems. And to answer the question from the previous presenters, what is wrong? What is wrong is that we don't take this stuff into account. We're just saying, well, there's lots of accidents, but hello, we've got a lot of neurodivergent people. We're not saying they are actually more dangerous, but they have a huge risk if they're not trained correctly. And that becomes a big issue. Sorry, did that answer?
Yes.
Yep. Yep, don't take them out. trust me. So just to finish that OH&S quickly, complete a student profile sheet. If you do the course, we teach you how to do the student profile sheet and how to do an ITP, an individual training plan. So it's educationally sound, and you can do that. Communicate with all allied health. So if they've got OTs, talk to them. They have all the information. So how do we best teach them? Because that's obviously what you want to hear me talk about. Dynamic training methods. We'll go to the next one. So dynamic training methods is about, we look at a person who's a square peg in a round hole. And that couldn't be any truer for a neurodivergent person. So what does dynamic mean? Dynamic means that the trainer can have 101 different ways of training one task, so that you're dynamic on your feet in that car, so that you can go, yep, let's change tacks. Let's do it a different way. That's dynamic. Because the reality is it's not just a square peg in a round hole. It's actually millions of different shapes. Each person is totally different. So the next bit, just want to have a quick talk about the brain, and I don't want to get too much into the neuroscience of it, but we basically have three brains. So the bottom brain is our survival brain. Liz likes to call it the lizard brain. Then we have our limbic brain, which is emotions, where all of our emotions come from. And then online, the last brain to come online is the actual cortex. And the prefrontal cortex is where we do all our thinking and heavy work there. So when we're talking about 16-year-olds, their green section hasn't quite developed. It's there, but it's not quite developed. So the prefrontal cortex is still coming online. They're still working from an emotional brain, and anyone that's got teenagers knows that. That if you talk to them sideways, they'll go into an emotional meltdown. That's because they're working from the limbic brain. Hand up those that do Safer Driver course. Module 1, you teach them to talk. You teach them, and module 2, we put it in practice of doing a commentary drive. One of the quickest ways to get a teenager to go from purple to green is a commentary drive, because you are forcing the brain to go out of emotion and into logic. And that works well for neurodiverse kids that are working really heavily into that emotional brain and not putting on the prefrontal cortex. So commentary drive is one of the best ways to actually switch a brain from one to another. There are many different ways to do it, but that is one that Safer Driver course, it's a good method that we can teach them and really get them talking. The way I explain it to the kids in any of my neurodiverse classes is, you can be talking inside your head, because none of them, you notice none of them want to actually talk out loud. It's like they go into this little shell. None of them want to talk. And I always say to them, look, you can have your internal voice. We all have one. We're all talking to ourselves. But your brain is geared to go, blah, blah, blah. She's talking again. Just filter all that out and just keep that a little bit. And that's what we work in our short-term memory. If we talk out loud, our brain is forced to use the hearing and the processing to hear that. So it's really important these kids actually do talk out loud, not just in here. It's the mechanism of swapping the brains over. So with ADHD, we often see a lot of those neurotransmitters having a problem in the purple section. So they're not regulating their emotions. So they can go from, 0 to 100 of calm to crazy in split seconds. And so you say, who are you? Who took aliens and brought another student into my car? Because of the dysregulation. So we have to teach them regulation of their emotions. And I know we're not their parents, but we are teaching them to drive, and that becomes part of the driving. So a huge part of education is the executive functioning skills. So if we look at what executive functioning skills are, this sort of explains it. These are all key parts. And if you probably would agree with me that most of that's needed for driving, would you agree? Yep. So flexible thinking, working memory. What is working memory? We're going to talk about, is that mine, is it? Oh, I've got to talk. Hang on a minute. That was for my working memory. It's all good. Impulse control, organisation skills and task initiation. ADHD have a very poor task initiation. So they know they want to do the driving lesson, but how do I get off the couch and actually get out and go with my driving instructor? And is there 101 different things I could do to distract me from doing that? Yes. So that executive functioning skills are really important. So we need to develop these. These are developed in the prefrontal cortex, and things like self-talk, real life scenarios, so that you can sit there at a roundabout and show them some bad behaviour. They'll get that more than if you showed them written words. So it's real life stuff. Remediation in your teaching. Don't be frightened to go back and do it again. And they'll go, oh, we did this last week. Yes, we did. And now you're going to nail it. So it's remediation is going back and repeating. They will learn more from their mistakes because they're working from an emotional brain, and our mistakes and our long-term memory are attached to our emotion. So you think of the worst possible thing that ever happened in your life, that's in your long-term memory because it's attached to humiliation, shame, anger, whatever, an emotion. And that stays in our long-term memory more. So when you re-feel that emotion, you often have that same memory. And for ADHD kids particularly, it's like, I don't want to do that because last time I did it, I hit the gutter and it was really bad and I failed. Yep, let's do it again 10 times. Because their long-term memory is putting a brick wall up for them. So we have to shatter that brick wall and get them past it. So executive functioning skills, very important. Metacognition. Anyone know what metacognition is? Thinking about how we think. So metacognition is in training is teaching someone how they best think and then working with that. And if you have a look at the cycle of metacognition, it starts with assessing the task. Then it goes through to evaluating your strengths and your weaknesses. Plan the approach, apply the strategies, and reflect. I couldn't write a book better on how to deal with an ADHD kid than this, because that's exactly the process you need for ADHD. We need to assess the task with them. We need to tell them what we're about to do. We need to give them motivation to do this because they don't really want to do it. They need to evaluate what they're good at. And like Safer Driver, we don't always go about their weaknesses. We prompt the strengths. We plan the approach. How are we going to do this? This is what I call the toolkit. These are the strategies we're going to use. And we apply the strategies and then we reflect. We always come back and go, well, how was that? What did you do really well? And they write that down in their little workbook. What I did really well. 2 things. What do we need to work on? I never say, what did you do wrong? Because that will just go boom, straight into their head as negative. So what do we need to work on? Okay, I can do that. Yeah, next lesson, we're going to work on that one. Okay. So working memory is the other executive function that we need to quickly talk about because time's zooming. Working memory, you may hear people say a lot of these things about someone. She zoned out in one ear, out the other. It's their working memory. So often these people are struggling with the working memory. So working memory refers to the ability to hold in your mind and manipulate a limited amount of information over a short period of time. 4 chunks, 20 seconds. That's about all you've got. So you know when it's like someone tells you their phone number and then the kids run and go, Dad, and you go, oh, half those numbers just went out my head. That is your working memory. For ADHD and autism, that is already dysfunctioning. So if we have a look at, really quickly, I don't want to spend too much time on this one. Central executive is our brain, our prefrontal cortex. What we see and what we hear go into our short-term memory. You've got 20 seconds of information. Anything that is attached to an emotion, sorry, just turn my phone off completely. Anything that's attached to an emotion will go into the long-term memory. Yep. So long-term memory is very, very attached to emotion. This is where we lose the kids. We give them too much information. We try and tell them everything, and yet these kids often are really good at doing their own research. So they already have this information. We just need to make sure they understand it. So in a lesson, as we increase the number of elements in a task, the complexity also increases, and therefore so do the working memory demands. So in a lesson, this could be what it looks like for your student. Pedestrian walks out, speed, watch your speed, you're going too fast, oh my God, the car's slowing in front. Yep, do a head check, don't forget your head checks. Oh, you're not keeping your 3-second gap, John. Come on, keep that up. We've got to change lanes up ahead. And yeah, don't forget it's raining, we've got to put our wipers on. Yep, do a gear change, we're on 3rd, we need to go 4th. And oh my God, your lane position's a bit out. So basically, yeah, they're happy at the beginning, sort of going, oh my God, and by the end, they're having a meltdown. You have totally lost them. They don't have the working memory to remember all this stuff. So yes, the question is, should they be driving? That question in research comes up a lot. If they're trained well, they're trained to develop this, and that's the important bit. So for an ADHD person, that's what driving looks like. Then someone winds the window down and half the post-it notes go out the window and they can't even remember what's on the post-it note. So yes, it's not great for them to retain information. And keep in mind the question about school, they've just had 6 hours in a boring classroom where the teacher just told them that they're not going to amount to anything and get up the principal's office because you're just misbehaving. They're emotionally exhausted. So in education, this is not for us, but for education, to put it into another term, we have a lot of school teachers think this is great. It's brain noise. It's congested in a classroom. A neurodivergent kid's nightmare. They wouldn't know where to look and they would be so overwhelmed and they would hold that together till they got home, and then by the minute mum and dad get them home, they're having a meltdown. There's an argument, there's everything happening, and you're wondering why, because of the noise that's in a classroom. Whereas a neurodivergent classroom looks like that. Calm, nice colours, clear clutter, easy for them to get up, walk around, get movement. ADHD kids need movement. They need to keep themselves moving. That's the dopamine hit. So things I was talking at lunch, you know, getting out and going, swap sides, I'm going to show you something for 5 minutes, and then they swap sides, is enough for that kid to get out, stretch the legs and get movement, and their brain declutters. So it ends up looking like that in a driving lesson if you clutter their brain too much. So training ideas for neurodiverse people. See me first, acknowledge me. A lot of trainers don't acknowledge who the person is. They're not intellectually impaired. They have a good IQ and they know why they're there. Acknowledge them. Ask me what I need. Let me help plan the lesson. You'll get more out of the kids. Be concise, declutter your teaching. And that's really hard for teachers because the nature of a teacher is to want to impart all your knowledge. That's not what we're there for. We are there to help them find their way. Give me more time to process and filter the information. It will take them twice as long to do that. Fill my toolkit with strategies. That's what a workbook's for, so that you can give them all these strategies, they can take home, they can think about it and employ those strategies. Telling me everything's not necessary. You'll meet him on the next slide in a moment. Jack is level 2 autistic, and his comment to me was, Sue, stop telling me everything. Okay, what do you want me to tell you? You need to know some of it. No, just bold the key word. Everything else is unbolded. I will look at that, I understand it. So, okay, Jack, that's how we're going to do your notes from now on. He was happy after that. So ask them how they prefer it. They will tell you. Executive functioning, I can't understress that. Executive functioning has to be in every lesson, and this is not just for neurodiverse kids. If we want to drop the accident rate on road of novice drivers, we are not teaching them executive functioning. We're not teaching them metacognition. We need to have that in the normal driving lessons. Keep me accountable. Most people are scared of ADHD kids because they can get violent, and they can get angry, and they can yell at you. I can yell back too. But keeping them accountable is how we're training ADHD kids now. We're not letting them get away with, oh, well, that's bad behaviour, we're just going to let you do it. No, we're not. You're accountable on the road. So, a couple of things. How much time have I got? 5? Okay. We'll flip through a couple of these. So when I'm teaching someone to steer, neurodiverse kids, I always teach them where you look, you steer. I always joke with them, if I was to write a book, it'd be a one-liner. That's it. Where you look, you steer. But they have problems in transferring the knowledge of one skill to another until it clicks and you go, oh, it's the same as that. So the way I teach steering, Mario Kart. And they go, I get that. I said, yeah, as long as you understand, we cannot reset the life in this video game. You have one. That's it. They get that. But where you look, you steer. Happy to talk anyone through that method, but in the course we go through Mario Kart steering. The other thing we do, roundabouts. And I'm sure many of you teach the clock face. It looks like a clock from above. Go onto Google Maps, look down on satellite view, you have 4 islands on a normal roundabout, because they'll argue with that, they don't all have 4 parts. You go, yep, I know, I'm talking about the average roundabout. And you're coming in at 6 o'clock. Doesn't matter where you're coming in, you're 6 o'clock. So your crash zone is 3 to 6. Oh, we got the red up. Thank you for that. Harry's amazing. So the crash zone is the 3 o'clock to the 6 o'clock. The thing that they have problems with is they're so distracted, they forget to look to the 3 o'clock. So I'm doing a lot of look to the 3, are we clear? So the question you're asking them is not, okay, we're not telling them, it's clear at the 3 o'clock you can go. You want their executive functioning to kick in. So the question is it clear? And they go, yep, well done, let's go. So we're teaching them using those skills so that they are using their own executive function, not ours. And the last one, if you're going to do notes, in Jack's words, make it simple, Sue. And it's not about simplicity for intelligence, it's about processing. They can only take so much in on that short-term memory that we need to give them the base stuff, the important stuff. So this is one of our handouts for head checks. Anyone that's had kids that are just like, I don't know when I'm doing a head check. And you go, yep, they're not understanding the types of head checks. So we break them down into 3 head checks. You have movement, you have manoeuvres, and you have intersection. Does that make sense to everyone? 3 types. So their brains are now filing this away and going, oh, we'll put it over here in the filing cabinet. Am I doing an intersection? I need a head check. Am I moving the car? I need to do a head check. And let's not worry about the manoeuvres, I always say to them, because they're sets of head checks. And you guys are so good at remembering stuff and checklisting. You just need to know how many head checks you're doing. And keep in mind, neurodiverse kids are more likely to remember numbers, not left, right, left, rear. So in a 3-point turn, for example, I don't tell them, you know, is it left, right, left? Yeah, anyway, you know what it is. I talk about numbers. I talk in, out, 3, 2, 1. And they get this little rhythm going. It's like in, out, 3, 2, 1. And 3 in their brain is like 1, 2, oh yeah, 3. They remember that more. So there's lots of strategies you can use in your notes, but keep them simple, declutter. So to recap, autistic people are not damaged. They see and process things differently. They don't need fixing. They just need your help to navigate a world that was not designed for them. ADHD is not a disorder of behaviour, it's a developmental impairment of the management system of the brain, executive functioning. Anything we teach neurodiverse goes well for a neurotypical kid as well. So in the course we do, I've got a few of my graduates here in the room, DI training for neurodiversity, how to write an ITP, which is really important, especially when you're working with OTs. You can help the OTs with that. Specific training ideas, we go through supervisor training and learning. We also do training for parents online and in person. Strategies and how to work with students' strengths and achieve their goals. So this is what it looks like as a driving instructor. Here, you can borrow my belief in you until you can find yours again. That's what we're in the car for. To give them that belief that over all the years of being a neurodiverse kid, that they didn't fit in and they had all these challenges, you may be the first person in their life that gives them the praise that they need to achieve independence and mobility. And the look on their face when you say, and they say, do you think I can pass? You go, yep, you can. And that look on their face is amazing, very rewarding. So our job as teachers is not to prepare kids for something, our job is to help kids learn, prepare themselves for anything. And that is the answer to road safety, other than teaching the parents. It's another lecture. So this is Jack to finish off. Jack passed his test last week. So Jack is autistic level 2. I have known Jack for 5 years. He's been on my books. Multiple meltdowns. One, he actually got out of the car and walked away until I wound the window down and said, Jack, we're 5 kilometres from home. He came back again. Obviously, I gave him the motivation to come back. He gave me advice in the end how to teach him. He is now learning at university to be a teacher in history because that's his passion. He could name anything about history. I've even had to Google and check, and he was absolutely correct. 2 attempts and now passed. 1 or 2 questions, and then Liz has got the floor. Yep.
Do you find people get better with age?
Yes.
So a 16-year-old,
yep.
It is, excuse the term developmental play. I find an 18-year-old seems to pick up things.
Totally.
Just give them a few years.
There was a research paper done recently by Carrs University in Brisbane, and they found the older you got, the less, because the people were actually working out their own strategies. And executive function, prefrontal cortex has come online, so they're actually working out themselves how to help themselves. So yes, you do see that. Although I did an OT assessment about 2 months ago, had the OT in the back. Doctors had him down as, and he was 60 odd, so not young, and the doctors had him down as dementia, early onset dementia. And 5 minutes in the car, I knew it was ADHD. And anyway, the OT at the end, he got out and the OT and I were talking, and she said, oh my God, his brain patterns all over the place. And I said, he's ADHD. The look on the OT's face was like, oh shit, he is. And it totally, he got off the dementia bandwagon. So it was amazing to just see the OT click with it. Once I sort of said, well, he did that, that and that, I could probably diagnose him as an ADHD. So yeah. So yes, age does see a little bit. Autism, no. They're always going to be what they are. So, but as I said to you, it's not an intelligence thing with autism either. So they're just working out how to best navigate the world. Yeah. Yep.
You talked about visual noise inside a classroom. How do you navigate visual noise on the roads?
Yes, very difficult. It's teaching them how to blank them out and what's important and what's not. So it's teaching the brain the executive function of what's important. And one of the things I often use, do you know the fire brigade have the green, orange and red? Watch and wait, watch and act, catastrophic.
Yeah,
yes.
Bushfire.
Bushfires, yeah, thank you, bushfires. I use that directly with clients, and I'll say, is it watch and wait? Like we've got the thing on the dash, you know, yellow, orange, red. I say, well, we'll sit and watch the traffic for a little while, and I'll say, is that watch and wait, or is that an orange, or are we in the red zone? Has it gone catastrophic on us? Because what's catastrophic mean? Catastrophic means that you have to do something about it. And we know the answer to that is cover the brake, manoeuvre, buffer. And so we've already gone through that first knowledge, so we can put it into place now into the bushfire thing. And that works well for a lot of them. Some look at me blankly and go, I don't know what you're talking about. We've got to be dynamic and do something else.
I was thinking more for route navigation and things like that.
Yes, yeah, definitely. Navigation devices are great for neurodiverse. It takes a lot of the anxiety out for them, but then they're not allowed to use their phones in car, so it presents other problems. Thank you, everybody. I'm here for the 2 days, so any questions now, I'm happy to answer them. So I'll hand back over